أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي ربي زدني علما ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح ربي زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم فقهنا في الدين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu once again. We are doing the tafsir of Surah Baqarah, and we started from Surah Fatiha. Now we are on ayah number 180 of Surah Baqarah, and today we'll be doing ayah number 180, 181, and 182. So inshallah we'll start with ayah number 180.
كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين.
So kutiba comes from kataba, like we talked last time. Kutiba is a passive tense, so it has been written or it has been prescribed. So writing, like we say for anything, like where is it written? You know, sometimes somebody asks us do something, and you know, like you're required to do something, and as this, and you're like, okay, where is it written? Show me. A lot of times people say that. So the meaning of written, the expression to it is written about that is usually in the in the sense that it is prescribed or it is mandatory upon you to do this. So here, kutiba alaykum, it's an expression in the Quran quite frequently, and it's also an expression in Arabic language otherwise, other than the Quran as well. When it is said kutiba alaykum together, it is written upon you. It means many times it has been made farz upon you, or it is prescribed that you need to do this. So kutiba, it has been written or it is prescribed. Alaykum, from two words, ala and kum. Ala, upon, kum, all of you. So it has been prescribed upon all of you. All of you here refers to the Muslims, the new Muslim community that has been formed after the change of Kaaba. In the beginning of Surah Baqarah, we learned about different kinds of people. Then we learned about the story of Adam alayhi salam. Then we learned a whole lot of history about Bani Israel. And then there was a passage about the change of Kaaba and change of Qibla from Baitul Maqdis to the Kaaba. And after the change of the Qibla, now the new Muslim community is being formed, and different rulings and different things are being given, how they go on their life. And last time we learned about the rules of, in the previous ayahs, we learned about the rule of qisas, of when a murder takes place and what has to be done and everything. So that was also kutiba alaykum, written upon you, and this is also written upon you. Ida, when, hadara, approaches, ahadakum, ahada, one, kum, all of you. So one of all of you. So whenever to any of you approaches what? Al-mautu. Al-maut, the same as in many other languages too, maut is death. So when death approaches any of you, O Muslims, in taraka, if, in is if, taraka, taraka to leave, if he leaves. So any of you, when death approaches, and if he leaves, who is he here? He is the one who's dying. Any of you who's dying, when he leaves, khayran, khayran is for good. Al wasiyatu, wasiyat, like we say in Urdu and Hindi as well, wasiyat is the will, that a dying person leaves a will for something. So al wasiyatu, we'll talk a little bit more about this word inshallah in a little bit. So it is written upon all of you that when death approaches any of you, if he leaves good, that what does he do? He makes the will. What is made mandatory? What is written? To make the will. That make a will. Lil walidaini. Li here refers to for. Al walidaini. Aini refers to two. And walid for parent. Two parent means both the parents, the mom and the dad. So make the will for the parents, for your mother and for your father. Wal aqrabina. Aqrabina, qaraba, qarib, from qarib, something that is near. And who are near? Our relatives are near. So aqrabin is refers to the relatives, people who are related to us, who are near to us, the near close relationships, like our siblings, our cousins, our uncles, our aunts, our grandfather, grandmother, our children, our grandchildren. These are all our close relationships. They are near to us. So wal aqrabina bil ma'rufi, be here with al ma'ruf, ma'ruf in a ma'ruf, in a fair way, in something that is recognizable, that we recognize as fair and just and right. So bil ma'ruf, with fairness. Haqqan alal muttaqin. Haqqan, this is a haqq, this is the truth, this is a duty. Ala, upon, al muttaqin, the righteous ones. So this writing of a will for the parents and for relatives and everything in due fairness is a duty upon the righteous ones, people who have taqwa. So in previous ayahs as well, we learned about taqwa, that people who have taqwa, they should do this, and about the right of life. When when a murder takes place in the society, then what happens? It is the duty of the people who have taqwa to find the murderer, and then the state or whatever the law authority is, they need to punish that person. So, and we learned about taqwa there, and we learn about taqwa here, muttaqin. So this is a duty upon the muttaqin. So here this ayah is saying, prescribed for you when death approaches any one of you, if he leaves wealth, is that he should make a bequest or a will for the parents and near relatives according to what is acceptable. And this is a duty upon the righteous ones. Then ayah number 181. I think my screen. Okay.
فمن بدله بعدما سمعه فإنما إثمه على الذين يبدلونه إن الله سميع عليم.
Faman, it's two words, fa and man. Fa, then, man, whoever, baddalahu. Badal is to change something with something else. Baddalahu, changes it. It here refers to the will. Whoever changes it, then whoever changes it. And here it's referring to, like, once the person has made a will and he passes away, or the person makes a wasiyah while that person is passing away, he tells somebody to do this, and then whoever, after knowing this, changes it. Ba'dama, after what? Ba'da, after, ma, what? Sami'ahu, he has heard it. He has heard it. So the one who is changing it, if he has heard the wasiyah and then he changes it after that, fa innama, fa, so, innama, only, ismuhu. Ithm is a sin. Who? It. So it's sin. So it here refers to the changing, the act of changing. So the sin of this changing, ala alladina, ala, upon, alladina, those who, yubaddiluna, after, who alter it. Badala, from here the same one. Badala, and here as well. Badala, yubaddiluna, right? So they alter it. Inna Allah, indeed, Allah is Sami'un Alim, is all hearing and all knowing. So what this ayah is saying is, whoever alters this will after he has heard it, then the sin is only upon those who have altered it. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. We'll talk a little bit. Number 182.
فمن خاف من موص جنفا أو إثما فأصلح بينهم فلا إثم عليه إن الله غفور رحيم.
Faman, but whoever, khafa, fears, comes from khawf, ha, wow, and fa, khawf, to fear something. Faman, khafa, so whoever fears, mim musin, from musin, the one who is the testator of the will. Janafan is an error, to incline towards something in error. Aw, or, ithman, sin, fa aslaha, then reconciles, bainahum, baina, between whom, them, then reconciles between them. Fala, fa and la, two words. Fa, then La, there is no. La means no, and here in the context of the sentence it will be so there is no isma, sin, alayhi. Ala and he combine together to become alayhi. There's no sin upon him. Inna Allah, indeed, definitely, there's no doubt about it. Don't doubt it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? Ghafurun, the all forgiving, the one who gives maghfirah, the one who forgives continuously again and again. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafurur Rahim. He's the all forgiving and He is the all merciful. So, this ayah saying is that if one fears from the testator of the will some error or sin and corrects that is which is between them, so there's some conflict happening and that one person fears something and then he connects those people and corrects what is between them, then there is no sin upon him. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving and merciful. So in today's ayat, we are learning about the right of property. So in the last few ayat, which we talked about last week, we learned about the right of life and rulings of qisas in them. And now we have the laws concerning to the right of property. And both these laws are usually found side by side in the Quran and the Hadith. And like every person has a right to their life and to their property. Whatever they own, whatever Allah Ta'ala gives them, they have a right. Whatever is just for them, they have these rights. And these rights should be clearly defined and protected and respected by others. That's what leads to a just society, a society in which everybody respects everybody else's rights to life and to property. That's when the society functions properly. Most of the crimes, they happen because either somebody's right of life is not respected or somebody's right to property or what they own is not respected. And no matter what crime we can think of, we can either it is taking away somebody's right to their life or to what they own, whether it is their own self or the property or the money or anything. Most of the crimes are done like that. And if you just look at the background of when these ayat were being revealed, Arabs before that had a long time before Islam and many years before that, Arabs had a well-defined customs and conventions before. But like what happens in every society, slowly corruption had crept in like they had the Kaaba was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam along with Ismail alayhi salam, and the purpose of building the Kaaba was Tawheed and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just like they had corrupted that part and brought idols there and everything, they had also corrupted a lot of social practices and everything. When the fear of Allah goes away, then it is easy for corruption to creep in. And what had happened with all these corruption creeping in was this right of property was exploited. So the poor, as what happens in any corrupt society that we see, anybody who has money or power misuses that money or power, and anybody who is poor or does not have much power, their rights are taken away and they're exploited, or they're not allowed to get up from where they are. They are subjugated and they're kept that way, right? So they things like that had started happening in the Arab society before that. And now to change that, some legal remedies were needed. And these legal remedies were to define and safeguard the rights of uh, the relatives of a person is passing away and that person has relatives and everything. And there are other members of the society too. So they have to be taken care of. So if we look at these ayat in this background, then they make more sense, and we are able to understand that more. Also, in relationship to the previous ayat, when we are talking about that a person who murders somebody else and then now that person has to be given a punishment of capital punishment of a death sentence. Now in that case, when there are people who are dying, and also otherwise when people are even in general sense, when people are dying and every person has to die, this is one thing that we all know, that we come to life, we are all going to go one day, and every person is going to go through death. So there has to be something. What happens after that? What happens to that person's property, whether that person owned $100 or whether that person owned $10 billion? There has to be some kind of a mechanism to work out what to be done. And at that time, what was happening was, in the Arab society, supposing a man died, then it was a very unpleasant and very ugly practice. But what happened was the sons would inherit everything that that man owned, including his wives. So what would happen in that society of Jahiliyyah was, there was a practice of polygamy. So there was a father who has, say, 5 wives or 6 wives or 7 wives. And when he died, like he had a son from the first wife, and that son, and he didn't have any other sons. Now that son would inherit all his wealth, and other than his own biological mother, all his stepmoms, he would marry, automatically become, like marry all of them, and he would inherit them. So he could do whatever with them, whether he would keep them as so they would become his property. Like he could marry them, or he just owns them. He could do whatever and with them and everything, which was and some people did not like this practice, but then they would say, what can we do? This is the practice, so we have to do it. And that is the excuse that many people make at many times, that we see in the society. So there were a lot of practices, and this is just one practice, but there was many other practices. Like, for example, if some person dies and there's nobody to take care of that, or the children are small, then those orphans had some right on the property, but that right was not given to them, because somebody would say, okay, I'm going to be the caretaker, and then they would take away and they would use all that money, and then the person who was really wealthy, but the children would not get that money. Either they were not either they were not big enough, or they were not capable of handling for whatever reason, then it would not be their right was not given to them. So there were many instances, and it was very common in that society at that time. So here, what is being done is people are being brought back to a life of nobility and responsibility, and there are some set rules and things. How are things to be done? So it's the ayah. These three ayat deal with that, about what is going to happen with when somebody dies. So it starts with kutiba alaykum. Like I said, it's an expression in phrase very well known in the Quran, as also in Arabic language. This is to make something that is prescribed for you, something that is made farz upon you, that you need to do. So kutiba alaykum idha hadara ahadakumul maut. So first of all, the use of idha, when death approaches any of you. And if, after that, the second part is if that person is leaving some khair. So there are two conditions here, that when a person is going to die, any person is going to die, and he fears that the death is approaching, he knows that the death is approaching, and that could be because a person's sick, or because a person is going to a war or something. They know that they might pass away anytime soon, and if they are leaving some khair. One small point the scholars say is, if you look at that, the choice of words in the Quran are so precise, that even a small word here, and you realize the significance, because first thing is when you die. There's no if here. When you die, meaning and it reminds us that every single person has to die. This is something that is not conditional. Every single person, whoever has come to this earth, will go eventually. So when death approaches any of you, and the second part is that if you leave any khair. And khair here refers to, khair means, the literal meaning of khair is something that is desired or cherished. And it is used usually for things like, in the Quran and the Hadith, it is used for things like knowledge, justice, reason, goodness, and virtue, like any kind of khair that is there. And here, in this instance, it is used for wealth and property. And another point here is that the scholars take out is just the use of the word khair, which denotes things which are good, things that are desired and cherished, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing our attention to the point that money and property and wealth in itself is not considered evil in Islam. It is not. There is no extra virtue in just being poor. Um, but money is neither good nor bad. It is what you do with the money that is there. So there is khair in money if a person is able to utilize it properly. So again, bringing us back, which we've talked a few times, is that monasticism is not encouraged in Islam. That you do not run away from this world or the pleasures of this world, but you only choose the halal options, and you choose the good options, and you do with your money. Could be a source of Jannah for you, it could also be a source of Jahannam for you, whether you become attached to it, or whether you utilize it in towards the path of Allah, towards good things, towards taking care of others, towards the things that Allah Ta'ala has told us. So if this person is using this, and when the death is approaching, so this person has to make what is prescribed, that we have to make a wasiya. And what does wasiya mean? Wasiya means something which is something which is very important, that we teach or share with others, whether at the time of death or it could also be at any other point in life. For example, we learned this word in ayah number 132, 132 in Surah Baqarah before, that when Ibrahim alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam, when they were passing away, they asked their children, who are you going to worship? And they asked those things, right? And they made this wasiya. They gave this important advice that worship Allah alone and don't worship anybody else, right? So in that sense, wasiya could be something that is advice given by an elder to a younger person at the time of death or at any other significant point in life. In the Quran, it is also sometimes used for instructions given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to human beings. So, and wasiya could be something about money and property. It could also be something about children, like, okay, when I pass away, then do this with my children, or take care of my children in this way, or this needs to be taken care of my children. Depending on every person's circumstances, they need to, sometimes they might need to make certain kind of requests or certain kind of wasiya about their money, their property, or their children, or some important tasks. Maybe somebody is engaged in an important task, and they like they say nowadays that you have to make an exit plan. So supposing something happens to me tomorrow, and I'm working on a project with 10 other people, and I have all this sensitive information, then and I'm only the one doing all that work, then I need to either share it with someone or have some documents ready or something, that if I pass away, then if and when I pass away, then somebody could utilize them, and it doesn't become a means of getting stuck for other people. So that whatever important information or whatever important thing I have, that or whatever goodness I have, that can be shared after. So that is a wasiya, that I make it, that wasiya. So it could be about three things again. Wasiya could be about money and property, like wealth in general, any kind of wealth. It could be about children, or those who are in under my guardianship. It could be my children, or it could also be other who I'm a guardian of, legal guardian of, or some important task that I'm engaged in. So any of these could be done. And we know that not every person is murdered or has a death sentence, but every person has to die. And out of those people who are dying, when they see death approaching, that means that, again, it's a very, another point here is that usually if we see a healthy active person and that healthy active person goes to make a will, then sometimes there's a lot of complication and difficulty in that. Okay, what do I do here? What do I write here? And everything, it becomes a bit like far-fetched. Okay, what do I do? Also, if a person dies without leaving a will, then it also leads to a lot of complications and difficulties for sometimes a lot of other people, that okay, what do we do now with this, what do we do now with that? So here the thing is that when death approaches all of you, then make this wasiya. So that, subhanallah, just that gets rid of a lot of complications. Neither this extreme, that okay, you're healthy and active and you're just worried about making your will all the time, nor that you just don't make the will at all and then somebody passes away and then everybody's worrying. No, when you get to that stage, and of course if somebody passes away suddenly, that's a different thing. But if death is approaching any of you and you see yourself deteriorating in your health, or you see things happening, then if you see death approaching, and people get this feeling, they know what's happening, then, or you're engaged in certain thing like a battle or something else, then in that situation make a will. Then making of siya is recommended. And um, it could be that like um, just before this, before Islam, there were no rules, right? So sometimes other people's rights were transgressed, like what we are saying, and uh, rules came slowly in Quran. The thing is that we learn that later on the rules of Wasiya are going to be much more in detail in Surah Nisa, when we come to the actual inheritance laws of what has to be done and how it has to be done and everything. One thing to understand in Islam is the Wasiya, or the inheritance of whatever we hold. Supposing I hold $100 and I pass away, then how those $100 are going to be distributed is not based on who needs it more. Maybe I have two children, and maybe one of my child is in worldly standards. If we think that one of my child is doing really good financially and everything, and the other child is not doing so good, then I cannot decide that one will get say $75 and one will get $25. The rules of inheritance are decided in by the Quran and the Hadith, because the thing is, we uh, when somebody passes away, then that whatever wealth we have, it was something that belonged to Allah. Allah gave it to us, and after we pass away, it belongs to Allah again, and it needs to be distributed. But this time, when we are learning this ayah, at this time, the ayat of Surah Nisa have not yet been revealed. So this is an ayah which is revealed before that. And it is important to understand the order sometimes, especially in legal matters like inheritance and everything, because it makes a lot of difference. And we'll just go over it and understand that. So in this ayah, when the exact laws have not yet been revealed, that this much percentage goes to this person, this much percentage goes to this person, that has not yet been revealed. So at this time, what the Quran is saying is to the people of Medina at that time, to the Muslims of that time, is that give in your make a will and give from whatever good you're leaving behind. From that, give to some people. And who are the people that you'll give it to? Give to your parents first of all, because obviously a wasiya is going to be made by a person who's adult, and when a person is adult, that means the parents are aging, and that means the parents are in need. They might need some support and everything. So your duty is towards your parents and towards your near relatives, people who are near to you. And again, like we said, it could be near to you, like your brothers, your sister, your children, your grandchildren. It could be your uncles and aunts, the people who are close to you, right? Um, it is and give to all of them bil ma'ruf. Ma'ruf is a word which means with due fairness, something that is recognized or an accepted thing, which is known or familiar, which everybody kind of agrees with. Everybody in any society, something which is familiar, which all good people are familiar with, and something that is practiced by respectable people of a decent society. It's a method based on justice and everything. That is called ma'ruf. Like this is like we say amar bil ma'ruf, like call towards, command people towards ma'ruf, call people towards something that is fair and just according. And again, some terms in the Quran are a bit open ended, in the sense that they can suit any time and any society. So Maruf for people living in 2021 in North America would be very different from Maruf for people living in, say, a thousand years ago in India or in Bangladesh or in Sri Lanka or those kind of places. The society is very different. But whatever in that society, in a decent society, any decent society, they sometimes they define their own maru. What is a good way? What is a recognized way of doing things? So, for example, weddings. There's a particular standard of a wedding or a particular way of doing things, that a person who has this much wealth does things in this way, or a person lives in this kind of a house or this thing. So every society has its own sort of little things that can be done, right? And the beauty of this ayah and many other places in the Quran that we'll see is Islam has left a number of minute details to be worked out on the basis of what is accepted and recognized in the society at that time, that particular time and place. And but there is a caveat to it. If the Sharia has not yet enacted a definite and precise law or rule. So if some precise law has not been revealed in the Sharia yet, then at that time, whatever is a practice of the good people of that society, and there's no divine commandment available, then maruf is to be followed. Something which is maruf is to be followed and treated as a valid basis, that okay, we'll do this. This is an acceptable practice. We do this. But if a revealed law becomes available, then maruf will cease to be valid. Then the law has to be practiced. Okay, so like they say that after there is sunrise, there is no need to look to the stars for guidance, right? So we don't need to look for stars or which direction is what after sunrise, because it's light now. We know exactly what to do and what not to do. We know our direction. We can see all around and everything. We don't need to follow the stars. So when divine law comes about anything, then everything is very clear and precise. You have to do this 1 2 3, and this is this percentage, this here. But until the law has not been revealed, now Quran is a book of guidance, and it took people slowly from one part to the other. And if we think of the society or the people at that time, Sahabas, we look at the Sahabas of the Prophet ﷺ as the greatest generation there were. They were the people of Sami'na wa Ata'na. They heard and they obeyed. But the Sahabas did not become Sahabas overnight, in the sense that it took time, and it took it took the tarbiyah that the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran did for them, which changed them from a society of jahiliyyah, a society that buried a newborn girl alive, and it considered that a part of an honor to do it, to a society in which the rights of every human being and the right of life and property were observed. The people who were addicted to alcohol, they were addicted to pork, they would do the tawaf of the Kaaba naked, and they would consider it an act of virtue to do it naked. And the people whose worship was nothing more than whistles and clapping and dancing and music and everything, that's what they called worship and everything. From that, to become a people who were so disciplined that they were worried about little things, and they would be like looking at the Prophet ﷺ about even the slightest of things and asking him what to do about how to eat, how to drink, how to sit, how to stand, how to sleep, how to go and use the washroom. Every single thing that took time, that did not happen right away. So, and if we think of it like that a plant to a tree, right? When a plant is small, then it is a sapling, then it needs some delicate care. We can't put pressure on that. We have to take care of it, and then we let it grow. We put fertilizer. We weed things. We take out the weeds around it. We let it grow. We give it enough sunshine. We give it enough water and everything. We let it grow, and over a period of time, that little sapling, that little it becomes a plant, and then it becomes a tree, and then the bark becomes strong, and then it has branches and fruits and everything, to a point. Then after that, that tree becomes very strong, and then people can even like children can climb up on it and play on it and hang on its branches, and hang swings on its branches and do that. So a tree reaches that stage, but a tree does not reach that stage right away. There's interim stages. And a law, if you think of this simile, and then a law is a law, but Quran is guidance. It has law, but it is also much more than law. So when talking about the the law of wasiya, of what to do when a person has to die and what to do with the wealth and everything, one of these, which is one example. In this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not really reveal the laws right away. It was a society that was not used to doing things at all in a right way. And now to take them there, um, it is like the topic is being introduced. Okay, start thinking about it. When you pass away, what are you going to do with the wealth? It has to be done in a good way. Things have to be done in a good way. Things have to mean parents have some share in it, and your relatives have some share in it, and that share has to be done with fairness, with goodness, with there has to be justice in there. You cannot just say okay. And a lot of times, some Arab people, what they used to do was they have a very close friend, and they would say all my wealth goes to this close friend of mine, because like this friend I used to hang out with, and he was my closest friend and everything, and my wife gets nothing, my parents get nothing, my children get nothing. They just give everything that they own, they would give to their friend, and everybody else is like in a soup now, what to do with their life and everything, and finances and everything else, right? So here Allah Ta'ala is telling us that start thinking about it. This your wealth, and it is written upon you. It is prescribed that what you do is, until the exact proportions were revealed, this was the law for them at that time, that you have to make a will for your parents, and you have to include these people. These people have more rights upon you than other people. Like your friends, you might be closer to your friends, but your parents have more right upon you. Your children and your near relatives have more right upon you than your friends or the people that you hang out with. And again, like we said, that the topic is being introduced, so it's being introduced slightly. Just like if we look at the example of alcohol, for example, first of all, it was said that there is some when the laws of alcohol were revealed at many times, first time it was revealed was that there is some goodness in it, but there is the evil of the alcohol is much more than the good. And now at that time, the society was addicted to alcohol, and for them to they didn't have, like, instead of water they would have alcohol with all their meals and everything, right? So they to tell them that, first of all, yes, there is some goodness, in the sense you can make some money out of it. Yes, you when you do sell alcohol, buy and sell alcohol, obviously the profit margins are much more. And yes, you could, on the face of it, when you look at it, it might seem that there is some goodness out of it. And like nowadays people talk about the health benefits of wine and health benefits of this and that, and we can hear all sorts of things all the time. And nowadays we even hear the health benefits of cannabis, and there's so much health benefits of this and that and whatever. So, and that those society, the wordings might be different, but people are still people. So they would have, we can imagine, I mean there is nothing concrete, but we can imagine that they would have made up things like this is good for you for this reason and that reason as well. And first of all, the law that was the topic, when the topic was introduced, when Allah Ta'ala introduced the topic of alcohol to the people, was that there is some evil in it. And then the second stage, when people got a little, and as a society, when something's being changed, not at an individual basis, but at the level of a society, then sometimes things have to be changed slowly. If we if you think of a highway, for example, if you are on the express lane and you have to take the exit, then you have to move out to the collector lanes first. You have to move out to the outside lanes first. Slowly, you have to, when you're driving off of the highway, you have to slowly go. You can't just go from the fastest lane to just take an exit, because that you would be disturbing a lot of people and you'd be creating a lot of chaos, and the chances of accidents are much more higher. Some things have to be done gradually. And like alcohol, we were talking about alcohol. So uh, and then the second stage it was revealed was that don't go to near to the prayer when you are drunk. So what happened was people who were drunk and they were like, oh, we can't go near to the prayer when we are drunk, and there are 5 prayers in the day. So the only time they could drink then was after Isha, because after Isha is the time they could drink, and they had enough time to drink and sleep and then wake up in a reasonably sober state. But also they could not drink too much either, because then they would be still hungover or have some effects at the time of Fajr. So it reduced their drinking time and the drinking capacity a lot when that ayah was revealed and everything. And then it was revealed, okay, khalas, no more alcohol. And then it was like that, and then it was told that alcohol is the work of shaitan and it is pure evil, and in fact it is a mother of evil. Like it not just when a person's drunk, it leads to a lot of evils. And people who work in hospitals and ERs and stuff, they find a lot of crimes, that a lot of mishaps that they see are with people who are drunk, whether it's domestic violence, whether it is accidents, or whether it is many other crimes that people commit, which the same people would not commit those crimes when they are sober, but they end up committing those crimes when they're drunk, because they're like, oh, I don't. And like recently, I heard here that, may Allah forgive us and may Allah guide our people, that I don't know about it, America, but in Canada, that if somebody is drunk and they end up raping a person, then they are not to be punished because they were under the effect of alcohol. So they have a valid excuse even for raping a person. May Allah forgive us and grant our people who make our laws hikmah of what they're saying and doing. So anyway, the thing is that how Allah Ta'ala gave took a society and changed those people was gradually, from one step to the other. And that's how the change actually happened, that when the law was revealed that okay, you have to leave alcohol, then people who had alcohol that time in their house, they poured it all out right away. There was a party in which alcohol was being served at that time, and they heard, and they just threw out the alcohol, and people who had just taken a sip, or like a minute ago, they tried to gag it out and vomit it out of their throat. That's how much the Sahabas were like, okay, this law has come, we have to follow it right away. So they were doing that. And later on, when Aisha radiallahu anha was asked about this law of alcohol, and she made a comment that, had this law came to us first, that alcohol is haram and you can't touch it, before all that before preparation of our mind, preparing our minds, and alcohol is not good for you and there is evil in it and everything, and don't even go near it, or don't go to namaz near it. Like, if we hadn't gone through that tarbiyah for our society, and that law had come right away to make it haram, then our people would not have left it. And we are talking about the best of generation, the Sahabas and everything. And even if we think of today's time and age, when we are supposing we somebody just takes shahada and they were not a Muslim before, and that person is an alcoholic now, or if that person was a Muslim but not very close to practicing, not very practicing, and now they are taking their steps towards Islam, but they have a alcohol problem. They are an alcoholic now. um, if you we ask them to just leave it right away, okay, from now on, khalas, you took your shahada, from now on, no, not a drink at all, what will happen? That person's body will react, they will have symptoms, and that person needs some help, they need rehab, they need things to quit alcohol, and they need to take it gradually and everything. So the situation becomes different for that person. That person needs to be, the law is still the same. Alcohol was evil and it is still evil. And yes, it is not allowed, of course not allowed, but there is a way to handle that, and Quran teaches us even that, right? So here Allah Ta'ala, through this topic of wasiya, now in a similar way Allah Ta'ala is teaching us how to communicate, how to change things in a society as well. Because if you try to bring any change all of a sudden and with a jerk, it will not work. And Allah Ta'ala teaches us He created human beings and He knows the nature of human beings more than any of us knows the nature of people around us, that things have to be done gradually and gently, and first introduce that topic and let people understand that topic, let people understand the wisdom behind those things, and then take them, uh, connect their hearts first, then give them laws. Just laws by themselves, why would anybody want to follow a law if their heart is not there towards that, right? So here, while introducing the topic of wasiya, at that time, this is a time when the exact law has not been revealed, and Allah Ta'ala is saying to the people, do whatever is fair and good, right? Do good to people and include who you need to include, your parents and people who are near to you in that time. And this is haqqan alal muttaqin. Haqqan alal muttaqin. Taqwa is mentioned again, that invest, there is a saying that every law has a flaw, right? So what that means, and we say in many different societies that whenever one law comes, people already or very quickly make up 10 different ways to break that law, right? Or find ways around that law and everything. And we know how huge the legal industry is at the moment, and like, and some of the things we know, we see around us, which we are like, this does not even make any sense, the kind of this person will sue this person for what, and this, like, some of the very crazy scenes we see. And Allah Ta'ala is telling us that law is one thing, but one thing is taqwa, and taqwa is the security guard that takes care of how we follow each law, how we follow each recommendation, how we follow each prescription that Allah Ta'ala gives us. And Islam is not like like a bland kind of a thing. Okay, do this, 1, 2, 3 rules, that. Here, Allah Ta'ala, by saying that haqqan al muttaqin, that this is a duty upon the righteous ones, that it is the righteous ones who will understand, the people who have taqwa, who understand that Allah Ta'ala is watching them. Because those who seek to avoid these laws, whether it is this law of wasiya or any other law, they have no fear of Allah in their hearts. Because if they had taqwa, they would comply and submit. So, what should we focus on for ourselves first, and then try to inspire that in others, is taqwa. Because when a person has taqwa of Allah Ta'ala in their hearts, then the law, it becomes much easier to follow any law that comes after that. Because when you, supposing I love my sleep a lot, but then if my child is very very sick, like if I'm like very particular about my sleep, I sleep at 9 o'clock dot and this that, and I wake up at this time, I have to have this sleep at that time, or I have to have my meal at this time, and come what may, I have to have this. But if my child is really really sick, then I wouldn't even think about my sleep at that time. I would be like, if somebody tells me this, I'd be like, somebody says, oh, thank you for waking up, your child was sick. I was like, what do you mean? I didn't even think of my sleep at that time, because I love my child so much that at that time, my own needs, I didn't even think of that, because that was a big priority, right? So when somebody loves Allah Ta'ala so much, when we have taqwa, when we have fear of Allah Ta'ala in our hearts, then what happens? Then any law that Allah Ta'ala gives, or any command that comes from Allah Ta'ala, then you rush to take that. And when some people are not rushing, then sometimes what we do is, we see somebody who's not following the way or the prescribed way of Islam, and somebody's doing something which is not very Islamic. Sometimes we meet Muslims who are behaving in a way that is, who are doing things which are clearly not un-Islamic, clearly totally away from Islam, and then it frustrates all of us. Obviously, it does, and it should. But the thing is, sometimes we end up going back, or we see other people going to them. Okay, don't you know this is haram and this is haram? This is, why are you doing it? And they start scolding that person, or they start doing this person or that. But sometimes what we do is we are just putting a band-aid over the wound, but we're not treating the wound really. What is the problem? The problem sometimes is taqwa and not understanding of the law. The law, yes, they might know a person who has been brought up in a Muslim family and everything, although that person might turn out to be an alcoholic. The problem is not that that person does not know that alcohol is haram. They very clearly know that alcohol is haram. They've learned it all their life. They learned it as a child. But yet, why they are still doing it? Either they're addicted to it, or they want to leave it and they can't leave it, or there's their taqwa needs to be increased. They need to be reminded of Allah Ta'ala in a gentle, loving way sometimes in a harsh way too, but sometimes in a sometimes they need to be that taqwa need to be inspired in them. You need to do stuff for Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala created you and things. So it might be that might be the problem. So we might see a symptom, and we might hit on the wrong end of it, but while the problem might be something else, right? So here Allah Ta'ala is teaching us that it is taqwa which will make a person do and follow a duty and everything. And again, as we go back to this, making a will is prescribed for a person when he sees the death approaching, and he is likely to leave behind some property. So there is some property that is there, and if the person does not make a will, what will happen? There might be some people might be quarreling over it and everything. So uh, uh, this the society at that time was not so mature and ready for permanent laws of inheritance for Surah Nisa, as we talked about later. And as a provisional measure, in this time, Muslims are being advised, okay, make a will for parents, other relatives, and your heirs are all those people who listen to this or who find this person's will. Now you are instructed to implement this will. Now it is your duty to implement this will, right? And after that, when the ayah of Surah Nisa came, and now if you think of today's time, the ayah is already there. So after those ayah, now we will follow those, and now we know that it is up to the one third of the property that we still have the right to make our will. We can still make the will for a limited. So this ayah that make a wasiya become in today's day and age, after the other ayahs have been revealed of the Quran have been revealed and other hadith and are now there. Now we will follow those, the clear laws first, because here is no percentage given that you have to give 10% to your parents and everything. Later on in the Quran, we will learn there are set percentage for different people. But after, beyond those percentages, if I have, let's say, $100, then I have Allah Ta'ala still gives me the option to choose of what do I do with $33 out of that. So I can, for example, I can say that I'm leaving behind $100. Then everything Islamic has to be followed, obviously, who gets what. But then I want out of those $33 to be given to a masjid for my on my behalf, or to be given to this orphanage on my behalf, or to be given to this friend who's not related to me, but then that friend has served me a lot and everything, and that friend took a lot of care of me and everything. So give this part of it to my that friend, or to be distributed to these people or something. So I can still decide upon that. And one other thing to remember here is that sometimes um, we just learn one ayah of the Quran, and a lot of people take this ayah or something and say, okay, this ayah is there, so we don't need to make the inheritance, right? So it is important when we need to consult somebody in legal matters, particularly, then it is important for us to consult those who have an all-round knowledge, who have read the whole of the Quran, who studied the whole of the Quran, who have studied hadith, and who are qualified in legal rulings and matter, whether that person is a mufti or whether that person is an alim or alima. That person has a comprehensive knowledge, because then they can guide us totally. So not just pick up one ayah from the Quran and take out legal basis for it. We can take guidance for it from ourselves for it. Any person can take guidance from any part of the Quran. Definitely, we can all do that. But when it comes to forming a ruling based on it, then we need to consult somebody who's qualified. Again, I am not qualified for that. I'm sharing what I study about the Quran with others. But if somebody needs a legal ruling, then we need to consider a person who's qualified for it. And another thing that we find through this ayah is that, and through these ayahs that we are learning today, is that Islam is a total way of life. It wouldn't just tell you how to worship Allah Ta'ala, it also tells us what to do with our wealth also, which means wealth is a part of our life, and we cannot just ignore that part of our life. It is very much a part of our life. And according to the law that we have now, for those people that Allah Ta'ala has already fixed some shares, like our children, we cannot give them something more out of those one third that we are supposing. I'm making this will for those $33 out of those 100. Then out of those 33, I cannot give to one of my child because I just want to favor one of my child more because that child was my favorite, or any other thing. I cannot do that. Like my children, who are a part of my inheritance by according to Islamic law, then they will get only that. And if I make my wasiya for that one third, then I can only make up to the people who are not already my inheritors, who are not already my Islamic inheritors, right? Because all the rightful people are already given their due share according to a hadith, to the effect of that the Prophet ﷺ told us, to the effect of that rightful person, every rightful person has been given his due share by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, and therefore it is not lawful to make a will for an heir. Somebody who's already an inheritor, we cannot make a will for that person now, after the ayah of Surah Nisa have been revealed, right? And so, for example, here maruf means give it in a good way. But a person might decide good way is I give everything to my mom and I leave my dad by himself. I don't give anything to my children, anything. That could be maruf for them. And that is for this provisional period. But after the ayah were revealed, Allah Ta'ala says, okay, now to give you in fairness, but now Allah Ta'ala will tell you what is fairness. What is exactly fairness? Some people kind of think that, okay, this is contradictory or this ayah has gone, is not valid anymore or anything. But again, my whole point of explaining all of this was that this ayah is valid, and as we learn more ayat later on in the Quran, and as we learn more hadith about inheritance as well later in the Quran, it is just expanding on this topic. So here Allah Ta'ala introduced this topic, and then later on he expanded on that topic on, okay, now these are the fixed shares and what is maruf. Before, in this interim period, in this provisional period, like we say, there was some measures were taken why before the whole exact percentages were revealed. And there was also benefit and rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in giving the Muslims of that time this interim period, this period of changing themselves. One, like we talked about, was a graduality, that they were able to move from one step to the other, and Allah Ta'ala knows human condition, right? Another thing is it provided immediate cover to some extent to the legitimate partners in the estate. These rights, which were denied by other relatives earlier, but now by introducing this topic, even before the whole rules were revealed later on in the Sira, even before that time, some immediate benefits were given, some to some extent, that people who were treated badly or whose rights were taken away, they started to get some of their rights because of this that were there. And also it served to revive some ancient traditions, like the traditions of the Arab nobility, that they used to before Jahiliyyah, they used to recognize and honor some kind of a nobility and everything. And at the time of Jahiliyyah, before Islam, the period that was there before Islam, some hundreds of years before Islam, now they had started these corruption and evil practice, and they were being reminded of maruf, that there's, you have goodness in you. You used to do things. Think of your great 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 grandfathers. They used to do things in a good way. Yes, last few generations have messed up, but then before that, things used to be done in a nice way. There was a lot of nobility, there was a lot of honesty, and people's rights were not taken away and everything. And the minds are being prepared that, and also the minds are being prepared for what is going to be revealed later. And in this interim period, in this provisional period, this compliance by kutiba alaykum in the beginning, we understand that even this compliance of doing things in a virtuous way, in a justified way, in a way that giving haq to the people who deserve it, and taking care of other relatives and parents and everything, that is not something that is just okay, it is nice to do it. No, this is something you still need to do. It's still mandatory upon all Muslims at that time, before the final and permanent law of inheritance come. Even doing it by maruf in a good way that is recognized in a society, anybody who looks at it can say that it is a good way, that this person did good. You need to do it in that way, right? You need to do it in a maruf way. And by revealing these, by starting this discussion and revealing these laws of inheritance, whether it is now or later on in Surah Nisa, that is also a big rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For whom? For the one who's dying, because that person has some sort of, if a person has children and that person is dying and that person's worried about his children, okay, what is going to happen about my children when I pass away? Who's going to take care of them? What is going to happen about their education? What is going to happen about their day-to-day care? What is going to happen about this? And that person makes a wasiya. That person now has some sort of a thing that, okay, these are God-fearing people around me, these are some important people around me, they will take care of it. That person has some sort of a confidence that after I pass away, my children will be taken care of. Somebody will take care of them, and these are people who have told things, are reliable people, and they will look after my wishes or my things as far as possible. it is also a rahmah for the witnesses, because sometimes the witnesses, when a person's dying or something, and you don't know what to do with the person, and it becomes awkward. And what do you do? And no matter what you do, you'll be like, okay, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that. So that creates a lot of confusion in a person's mind, a lot of guilt, and a lot of like, okay, no matter what they do, they're still ridden with doubt. Okay, should I have done that? Did I do okay? Did I not do okay? And everything. And also, it is a rahmah for the benefactors and the heirs of that person, because what happens is their rights were being taken away by people, and now they can have their rights which were denied by other people. So it is a rahmah for them as well. So in giving these topics, in introducing these topics, and in how to deal with these matters, there's a big rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah ta'ala says that if now whoever, now this person make a wasiyah. Now again, we have to remember that we are talking of this interim period, this time. These ayat are talking of this period when the ayah of Surah Nisa have not yet been revealed, and it is up to the person to make a will for all his wealth, or who and how he wants to leave it to. And Allah Ta'ala has told them, you need to leave for your parents and your near relatives, and with due fairness. Now this person made that will, that person made this wasiya, and there are people who heard it, and there are people who have to implement it, right? And now we are talking about somebody who hears it, and then he's like, okay, there's nobody else watching, I was here, so maybe I can say this person wanted 50% to go to his parents, 50% to go to his children, and 50% to 25% to his children, 25% to something else. Maybe I can say 25% to parents as well, and I say that he wanted 25% to go to me, like, and nobody's watching. So so that person, there something might come in a person's mind that I can do something, or I can change, or maybe one of the persons is my favorite, or one of the person is, like, thing. So let me just change something. So now this scenario is being talked about in ayah number 181, that whoever changes this wasiya after what he has heard it, like, so a person hears now this person passed away. I uh, i heard that, and I make some changes in that. Then nobody else knows I made those changes, but I just went ahead and I said, okay, this person go to this person, go to this person. That's how he said it, so that's how it's going to be, and we get it all done. But it was not fair. But because I'm the one who changed it, the sin of this is not on the person who died, because that person who died did their fair bit. So again, this reminds us the principle in Islam that we are responsible for our own deeds, right? And as long as we do things to the best of our ability, Allah Ta'ala does not hold us accountable for things that other people do. Because as long as we do our side of the bargain to the best of our abilities, and we will all deal with good people, we'll all also deal with not so good people. We'll all come across people who are very honest. We'll all also come across people who are not so honest. And in every situation and every kind of people that we deal with, it is what we do that matters about our record with our Lord, right? And it is our own deeds and our own thoughts and our own beliefs that are going to be a part of our scale, not other people's, as long as we we advise them to the right thing, right? So if now the person who has died, that person cannot make any changes now, and that person's already passed away. But here Allah Ta'ala is reminding us that now that one person changes it, then he gets the sin of changing it. But Inna Allah Sami'un Alim. That person forgets that the one who's dead cannot hear you anymore, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears everything, and He knows everything. Whatever you're going to do, right? If the person who died made the right wasiya, made the fair a very fair wasiya of to do this and do that, then this fair implementation of the law depends on the honesty of witnesses and their testimony, right? And so um, again, Allah Ta'ala's attributes of Sami and Alim are mentioned here, which is also a warning for those people who like to tamper with the testament. Somebody's made a testament, do this and everything, and now this other person is changing that, making changes in that. Then Allah Ta'ala is reminding that, and Inna Allah Sami'un Alim. Whenever sometimes we hear in the Quran we'll see the qualities of Allah Ta'ala, the names of Allah Ta'ala mentioned, like Wallahu ala kulli shayin qadir, right? Or sometimes we'll say Inna Allah, like Inna Allah Samyun Ali. Definitely, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing, all knowing. And here, when we hear Inna Allah, then the point is that definitely these qualities are being manifested right now. And sometimes when we hear that Allah Ta'ala, Wallahu Ghafurun Rahim, that when we when there's no Inna Allah, when there is Wallahu Ghafurun Rahim, that's like Allah Ta'ala might forgive you for this or He might not forgive you for this. But when here it is Inna Allah Samiyun Alim, definitely, no doubt, in this case, Allah Ta'ala is all hearing, and He knows every little thing that you do, every step you do, how much. So when a dying person has left his wasiyah to you, and again, hearing it here, that this person alters it after he heard it. There's a small point in this is, even if the person who is dying has not written the will, but he says something that, please take care of my children in this sense, or do this about that, or anything, even if you heard it, you are still as accountable as if it was written. So in Islam, the spoken word has a lot of value. If we think about it, how do we become a Muslim? We say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. We just say something by our tongues and we become a Muslim by that. How do we marry someone? You just ask, okay, this person has asked for your hand in marriage, and do you accept? And you say Kubul, like I accept it. And the groom says Kubul, I accept it, and they get married. Okay. How do the marriages end? When the person says when a guy says that I divorce her, uh, and then he says it, and then after the three instances, the divorce is done, right? It is by a spoken word, and how we speak and what we speak has a lot of importance in Islam. And a spoken word is an amana upon us. So when somebody gives an amana to us, if somebody is dying, and if we happen to be there, and that person made some parting wishes, and these are honored, even it's a matter of honor. Even if we look at the today's different societies, even if you look at it in secular terms, not even religious terms, then they say that the dying person's wish needs to be honored, right? So even people who are given a death sentence, they are asked, okay, what is your last wish or something, right? Like, and we will do our best to honor it. Right, so it is an amana upon the other people, and then people who we have to take care of the amana that we get, the trust that other person put upon us, then we have to follow it through. And then as long as it is just, now this is again, it is prohibited to make any changes to the wasiya, as long as the wasiya is what? As long as the wasiya is maruf, upon maruf, it is just wasiya. Because obviously at that time, the exact laws were not given. What does it mean for us in our time? That if a person has made some wasiya of that 1/3 part of it, and whatever the other 2/3 part of it has to be distributed according to the Islamic laws anyway, then everything should be done accordingly only. And we should not make any changes in it. And wherever laws are concerned, there are also ways to go around the law. But then again, what will hold us to accountable to that law is our taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we remember that Allah ta'ala is hearing, all hearing, He hears everything I do, He knows everything I do, then it will keep me straight. It will keep me from making any changes in it. It will keep me from making anything that is it is not warranted, that I should not be doing. And then Allah Ta'ala tells us that yes, it is prohibited to make any changes, but there is one exception. There are some exceptions to this rule, that supposing I hear this person was there, that person made a wasiya, and I heard it and everything, and then in a usual sense, in a general sense, it is forbidden to make any changes. But there are some exceptions when it is allowed, when it is not forbidden to make changes, and changes can be made, and in fact changes should be made at that time. And this ayah number 182, is talking about these exceptions. When are these exceptions going to be made? When you can make changes to a person who passed away and he made some wishes, or he made some things, and you can make some changes at that time, is this is being talked about in 182. And this forbidding is lifted in these cases, right? First of all, when the wasiya is not just, right? So we were talking about a wasiya which was just, which is maruf. But if something is not just, if something is wrong, right, then the witnesses can remedy an injustice. Some injustice was being done in that, then it can be changed. However, you cannot make a change on your own arbitrary basis and then creating your own kind of thing. No, 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 I don't think this is right. This is right on my own, even if I mean well, but I cannot just make a change based on what I think is right. It has to be done through what? Through mutual consultation, through understanding and reconciliation between the concerned parties. Okay, these are the two people, these are the sons and the daughters, and this is everything. And then you bring those parties together, and by mutual consultation and reconciliation, make that happen. And you don't just the witnesses or the testators, the people who are implementing the will, can't just go ahead and just keep making those things. Just because Allah Ta'ala lifts some prohibition in some cases doesn't mean that we can take advantage of that. We do it as much and whatever needed and in the right way, in involving everybody involved. We're not there to create ill feelings amongst people, because a lot of ill feelings happen because of the property or the wealth that has been left, or somebody does not get it or somebody gets it. And also what we do is at that time we seek forgiveness for the person who has passed away at the same time. So if a person who has passed away has made some mistake for some reason, uh, and we don't know the hearts of the people, but for some reason that person made a mistake or something, then we also seek forgiveness from that, for that person, and we realize that in Allah Ghafurur Rahim, definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most forgiving and the very merciful. So we try to, we want the best for the person who has died, and we also want the best for the people who are the inheritors of the person who has died, and we work out the best way possible. And in that thing we also seek forgiveness for ourselves and for the person um, who has died. And what would these conditions be then? How would we know that we can make some changes, and what are the changes that we can make, right? So first of all, if there is a doubt that the that anybody has acted partially, that you have put more like you favored one over than the other, and there was a right of somebody else, then something can be changed. And if a bequest was based on sin, or it deprived someone of their justice, like it was, or it was a person says that put this my money into this thing, and that uh, the place where they wanted to put their money is was something anti-Islamic, something that was sinful in nature itself, like maybe somebody says towards gambling, or towards propaganda against Islam, or towards something else which was clearly anti, or to buy like a liquor store or something which is clearly anti-Islamic or sinful, then you do not need to put it into action, first of all. And then if somebody's rights are being taken away, if there's some partiality going on, and some justice is being denied, then the testator, the other people, the parties concerned, can be brought together, and a reapproachment can be made, and they can be explained, things can be explained to people, and people who are upset or something, they can be pacified, and things could be done in a gentle and a peaceful manner, and do it in a nice way that everybody is, as much as possible, that everybody is well pleased and justice is done. Um, Here the word faman khafa, the word khafa originally means to think and to guess, to expect something, to be apprehensive, to have a khayal, to have like a thought in my mind, and then that thought creates some kind of apprehension. So for example, if somebody's sitting under a fan, there's a ceiling fan, and you're just looking up and you're like, oh, I'm just worried this fan might fall, or something, and that fan's making a lot of noise. If you think of like back home, these old fans, and they're making so much noise, and the person sitting there. Now if this thought comes in the person's mind, and that thought doesn't go away, then that thought itself, now the fan is still working like that, let's say for the last 10 years, but once the thought has come and the thought's bothering the person, it creates a fear or anxiety in that person. That person will find it more and more, the thought, they entertain that thought, it will it will kind of take over the thing, and they'll like start to feel shaky or anxious as soon as they're under that fan. They'll be like, no, I just want to get, I'm just afraid of this, I don't want to go near this or anything, right? So originally khawf referred to, linguistically referred to have a thought or something that creates some sort of an apprehension or something, and then from there it came to be used for having a sense of fear, or to be afraid of something, to have some fear or apprehension, some kind of conjecture in our mind, and or some kind of a knowledge that makes us anxious about something, right? So that's khawf. So whoever fears from the testator any error, from somebody who's going to give an error, and what are these errors? Now these two errors, the two words referred here, janafan and ithman. Okay, janafan means to incline, to tilt towards something, and it's mostly used in the sense of being inclined towards evil or injustice, while moving away from virtue or the truth. And here it is used in the sense of undue support or like undue like partiality or favoritism towards somebody else. So somebody who is executing the will, a testator or something, has an undue like I like this person more, so I just favor that person more, or which goes against the justice, but just because I like that person more, or I think that person's better, or I think that something's there. So justice is not being served in that sense because of janafan, to incline towards one person in that sense. And ithman, on the other hand, commonly translated as sin, but if you go at linguistic meaning, it means it carries a sense of lagging behind something. So athema, for example, would be a kind of a camel, dromedary, they call it, that lags behind the other camel because it just can't be bothered. It's like, and it's like just so that kind of a camel was called a thema. Like all the camels are moving together, they're supposed to move at a certain pace, and this one camel is like, I can't be bothered, and it's just like, I'm too this thing, and he can, that camel can move ahead, but it doesn't move ahead. It's like just like that. So in that sense, ithm is used for someone who lags behind in giving the due rights to others. Now these rights could be the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us, and these also could be the rights of other people upon us. So anybody who lags behind in giving the rights of others, that is doing a sin, right? So that is a sin to not give a right. So that in that sense, it is referred to sin, or to lagging behind in giving the due rights of something. And it is the linguistically speaking, it is the opposite of bir. And we learned the ayat bir and ayah number 177. Ithm is the opposite of bir. It's the very opposite of bir. So bir is to do goodness. Ithm is to not do goodness, right? To do sin. And here these two categories, there are two categories of this word. Ithm is usually used a lot of times in the Quran. We will hear the word ithm used with udwan, right? And udwan, if we think of sins with respect to rights of others, there are two ways in which sins are done. One is when the rights of others are violated or denied, and that is ithm. They're covered by ithm. And other is when the rights of others are put subject to aggregation and assault. Like when some assault is done and everything, that is udwan, to go out of your limit and oppress someone, do something against someone by aggression or by assault. That is udwan. And usually we'll see ithman and udwan coming together. Here in this ayah, however, we have janafan and ithman coming together. So in this context, ithm is about violating other people's rights to their property, right? So there's somebody else whose right to property, and that is being denied. So what Allah Ta'ala is telling us in this ayah is that if whoever fears from the testator janafan aw ithman, that whoever fears any error or any inclining or partiality towards someone, or a sin, that not giving justice to someone, then reconciles between them, then there is no sin upon such a person, because then that forbiddingness that we talked about in ayah number 181, that it is forbidden to make any changes, in this particular case it is not forbidden, you can change it. So this is one exception to that rule. And remember, inna allaha ghafurun rahim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is oft forgiving, very merciful. That Allah Ta'ala, we ask Allah Ta'ala to not just forgive us, but the people who, when they pass away, our near and dear ones, when they pass away, that they are able to do justice. We ask that Allah Ta'ala, that He inspires us to do justice, not just in this life, but also when we are passing away. Each one of us has to taste death, and we need to know about these rulings, about and inshallah we will learn slowly. Allah Ta'ala teaches us gradually. Allah Ta'ala knows us more than anybody else. He created us and He knows us. He knows that how we learn. He knows how we implement. He knows we are real people. We are not idealistic, nor are we angels that we can just hear about something and implement it right away. He knows that we need time sometimes to understand some things, to go deeper into some things, and He knows that we need some kind of a tarbiyah, some kind of thing, and then we ask Allah Ta'ala to do our tarbiyah. One of the very beautiful duas that one of my friend taught me about parenting is that ask Allah Ta'ala, Ya Allah, make my tarbiyah of my children according to your sharia, right? So help me to do the tarbiyah of my children, help me to raise my children according to how you recommend, something that would please you, that is according to your laws, that is not against any of your law, that is not transgressing to any of your laws, that I'm able to give the rights to my children, that I'm able to give the rights that my children have upon me. So may Allah Ta'ala make all of us as those people who are able to give the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as we can. We cannot definitely give all the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are upon us. We cannot fulfill all the rights completely at all. We cannot thank Allah Ta'ala enough for His blessing upon us. But may Allah Ta'ala make us of those who try our best and He accepts from us despite our shortcomings and despite our mistakes. And may Allah Ta'ala make us of those people that we recognize the rights that other people have upon us and that we live up to those rights and we don't we keep up the trust that other people have upon us, and then we don't betray other people's trust upon us, and then we do things in a way that are just, that is that we take care of the rights of other people. And whatever mistakes that happen, may Allah Ta'ala forgive us and our close near and dear ones, and may Allah Ta'ala guide us in every step of our life in every other way. May Allah Ta'ala accept our coming together for His sake today and every other time. And may Allah Ta'ala, just as He has united us as sisters in Islam in this world, may He reunite us as sisters in Islam under His shade on the Day of Judgment, and then once again under in Jannatul Firdaus, and be pleased with all of us. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.